Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the famous and still ongoing Ghostbusters 2016 controversy. A story once many thought long dead and gone has surprisingly come back into the light this week, as a new film in the series was just announced, along with a tentative release date of next summer in 2020. Basically, a number of social justice warriors are getting triggered by this because the new movie is set to be a sequel to the original two, instead of carrying on with the 2016 reboot story like what was originally expected. They had a whole Lady Ghostbusters shared universe plan that is never going to pan out now. The movie bombed. So yeah, unfortunately, that dream died when the Lady Ghostbusters reboot tanked, losing money and reputation for Sony on a grand scale. So now, the new plan is to make a new sequel, Ghostbusters 3, seemingly with the original cast returning too, at least in part. Hopefully all of them though. And this isn't the worst idea, all things considered, but there is a bit more to this story which needs to be recapped, before we can move on to the current SJW outrage. First things first, Ghostbusters 2016 wasn't just your typical summer blockbuster movie. There were a lot of other political layers to this project, which turned the whole thing into more of a message than a movie. You see, not only was this movie doing the whole lady reboot thing, with a girl power twist of course too, but also, this came out right in the middle of the 2016 election season here in America. Campaigns were going wild at this time, and Ghostbusters 2016 basically became a symbol for the pro-Hillary, liberal and leftist side. It was pro-progressive and social justice too. And at this time, things were really heating up in the culture wars here in the US as well. Not to mention, this was also the same time I started this channel, No Bullshit, on YouTube in April 2016, and many others popped up around then too. And then, of course, as you've seen, we all rose up too, as the anti-SJWs and conservatives eventually won these wars, of course. And our wins also came with losers like Hillary Clinton and the movie she personally endorsed, Ghostbusters 2016. So yeah, not only can you say 2016 was a big year for our side winning, but it was also a big year for the SJW side in losing. And now, back to 2019, the present, and signs of the left losing are still coming back to haunt them and anger them, and now they're triggered too. Announcing a new Ghostbusters 3 that ignores Lady Ghostbusters is just another sign that the liberals and SJWs are losing. And make no mistake, that's a big part of the reason they're getting so triggered by this new development too. But of course, just like last time, if you acknowledge their loss or criticize the left in any way, you're a racist, or in the case of the Lady Ghostbusters, you're a sexist for not liking this girl version. And now it looks like Sony and the fans who are excited about this new Ghostbusters 3 with the original male cast, well, people like me who are looking forward to that, we're going to be called sexist bigots again now too. So with all that said, let's start off our response to these SJW haters by going over a very salty article from Forbes magazine called Jason Reitman is directing Ghostbusters 3 and it's all your fault. Sounds sassy already. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what's going on. Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, will be directing and co-writing yet another Ghostbusters movie, and there's already an announcement teaser. Unlike the Paul Feig directed reboot from 2016, which ignited a firestorm of online controversy for, starring 4 women as Ghostbusters, this will be set in the same world as the first 2 Ghostbusters movies, essentially acting as a long-threatened Ghostbusters 3. The goal is to shoot the as-of-yet uncasted movie this summer, and make it Sony's big summer 2020 offering. Little is known about the film's plot, or who among the original cast will return, but an educated guess would presume another legacy sequel which combines new, young heroes with the original cast acting as mentors or elder statesmen. So yeah, Ghostbusters is going the route of Creed, The Force Awakens, and Halloween from 2018, I assume. Well, those numbers sound like a good indicator of what people want to me. They don't want goofy, fake, over-the-top, all-girl reboots like Ghostbusters 2016. The people want legitimate, serious, intense sequels, with some original cast members returning, like with Creed, Force Awakens, and Halloween 2018, which were all highly enjoyable movies. Some more than others, but you gotta admit, even The Force Awakens had some good moments. But let's get back to an earlier assertion in the article here. This Forbes writer is implying that Ghostbusters 2016 ignited a firestorm of online controversy because it starred 4 women, and this is simply not true. Sure, the movie did star 4 women, and many of the SJWs who supported it claimed people hated it because they hated women, but that's not really it at all. Really, this was a reboot that nobody asked for. Even back then, fans would have much rather had a Ghostbusters 3 with the original cast returning, or at the very least, fans would have also liked a more honest, realistic horror movie like the original Ghostbusters. But instead they got a reboot that was over the top and just a plain joke. And sure, it's supposed to be a comedy too, but Ghostbusters 2016 seemed like a joke version of the original Ghostbusters, instead of being a scary movie with comedic elements like how the originals were. Regardless, Sony failing to meet the fans' expectations was only the beginning. Then the movie, its actors, and the director, they all went full-blown feminist with it too, saying it was a pro-Hillary project and even eventually attacking the fans who disagreed with anything they said. These are the things that really caused the controversies back then, despite what this fake Forbes reporter would have you believe. To say I have mixed feelings feelings about this is an understatement. On one hand, you're rewarding a white male director whose last 5 movies bombed, and of those, only the 2 starring Charlize Theron and pinned by Diablo Cody received positive reviews. The keys to a hugely valuable franchise mostly because he's the son of the guy who directed the first 2 Ghostbusters movies. Unintentional or not, you're essentially rewarding the specific demographic who reacted in the very worst way to the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot with the thing they claim to want instead of the horrors of all-female sci-fi comedy. And yet, we have only ourselves to blame. Studios aren't charities and they tend to want movies that attract moviegoers and make money. Kind of contradicting yourself at the end there, bud. First he chastises fans for not liking the movie, then he admits that many more will likely see the upcoming male-driven one. Oh, and also, nice white male bashing at the beginning of this section here. God forbid a straight white guy directs a movie these days. Sure, you could argue it's a bit of a nepotistic move, giving the job to the original director's son, but Reitman can't possibly do any worse than what Paul Feig did with Lady Ghostbusters. Which, by the way, I can't believe anyone who actually watched that movie can question why people didn't like it. It was so obviously cheap, dirty, and immature baby humor. They had farts and queefs in it, and it had a boring story and weak characters too. I feel like even people who did like it can acknowledge that it's not for everyone, and it's certainly not on par with the originals, which were, again, legit horror movies with well-woven in comedic elements. But here's the real kicker for me. I can't believe this writer and other leftists really think people who hate Lady Ghostbusters are doing it for political reasons, or more specifically, for anti-female reasons. They're not. Even the most rabid feminists in the world could watch this movie and think, yeah, you know what? That wasn't well made or very funny at all. It's not some kind of perfect, undeniably funny and entertaining picture by any means. But social justice warriors seem to pretend it was, in order to shore up their attacks against its detractors, which they continue to attack to this day. Next, let's see what one of the actors from Ghostbusters 2016 has to say. One of the leading ladies, Leslie Jones, has once again decided to chime in here on Twitter, and she's once again making things way more political than they need to be. Yeah, she was one of the loudest voices speaking out for Lady Ghostbusters originally, when it was released in summer 2016. She's someone who made it a feminist pro-Hillary thing too. And also, it's worth noting that Leslie's bout with Milo Yiannopoulos on Twitter about this issue, that's what led him to being banned from Twitter for life back then. And this time, well, Leslie is being her classic SJW self once again, even saying announcing this new sequel is something Trump would do. What a joke. For more information on her response, let's turn to an article from AV News called Leslie Jones Says the New Ghostbusters Sequel is a Dick Move. Check this out. Last week, Jason Reitman announced that he would be developing a secret sequel to the original Ghostbusters movies, as in the ones with men, that would be targeted directly at the fans. A trailer even came out that billed the movie as Ghostbusters 3, with rumors suggesting that surviving busters from the old movies would be appearing alongside a new cast of 4 teens, 2 boys and 2 girls supposedly. The implication with all the talk about fans and returning to the original canon seemed like a weird and overt rejection of the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot, with Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, and Melissa McCarthy, which was a fine movie that is unfortunately best remembered for how much it infuriated sexist pieces of shit on the internet. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute now, AV News guy. Stop being so triggered so quickly. First of all, saying the Lady Ghostbusters flick was a fine movie is a bit of a stretch to say the least. Not only was it trashed by most critics and fans, you really can't deny that it was a flop that lost lots of money and clout for the franchise. It didn't sell tickets. So, the numbers really don't lie here. Acknowledge that and get off your high horse, guy, and stop pretending this movie was fine or good. It wasn't. It was awful through and through. So regardless of a girl cast or not, the backlash it received was well deserved. Now with this new movie seemingly attempting to erase the memory of the 2016 reboot, Leslie Jones herself is speaking out about how insulting the whole thing is. On Twitter via Rolling Stone, Jones made it clear that she was offended by the desire to forget about the reboot so quickly, saying it was like something Trump would do, and referring to it as such a dick move. And then below that we can see Leslie's extended tweet, with the vulgarities blurred out here, to keep things at least a little civil, and so I could get ads on YouTube. Also, gotta love how she makes this about Trump and politics right away. Like I said about the 2016 movie's release, the cast and crew made a big mistake by over-politicizing their shitty screwball comedy. They put unneeded political pressure on the project that eventually backfired in the end. But alas, it looks like Leslie Jones hasn't learned her lesson. Leslie needs a lesson in learning how to live, I guess. And she appears to be doubling down on the anti-Trump angle here as well. This is how the liberals like to associate things with politics. Leslie is clearly implying that making Ghostbusters 3 is something Trump or a supporter of his would do. This is also a sneaky, underhanded way of saying, hey, if you like this idea, you're a Trump supporter, which is something many of Leslie's liberal cohorts would do their best to not be identified with. It's identity politics, race baiting, and gender baiting here, all rolled into one. And this is why the Lady reboot film became controversial in the first place. And this is why it eventually failed miserably too. I mean, what does Leslie Jones actually expect here anyway? Should Sony make a sequel to Lady Ghostbusters despite it already losing them lots of money and respect and goodwill with the fans? Sounds like Leslie Jones is expecting special treatment here. Female movies don't need to sell tickets and make money in her mind, if you go by this logic. And that's highly contrasting the fact that men's movies have to make money, or they won't get made. This isn't really sounding like equality if you ask me, which makes sense since modern feminism isn't about equality anymore anyway. In the end, a lot of SJWs will continue to be triggered by this, and I predict this Ghostbusters controversy will be slowly rising up yet again as this new movie approaches. But this time, I do think this movie has a chance. Their new plan and ideas already sound like a much better fit for the franchise. It's something I and other Ghostbusters fans would actually want to watch, and it's something new people can also get into. So, unlike the 2016 Lady Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 3 is off to a good start. We'll just have to wait and see where things go from here. What do you guys think? Will Ghostbusters 3 turn out to be a good movie? Was Lady Ghostbusters undeniably terrible? It was certainly an economic failure, and it was hated by critics. And also, what do you think about Leslie Jones basically blaming Trump for Ghostbusters 3? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed what you saw today, and we'll see you all next time.